Hello, my friend. Welcome to a story that has echoed through the ages. A story of a man whose wisdom shaped nations, whose insights pierced the mysteries of life, and whose name still whispers through the halls of history. King Solomon. Today, we begin at the very beginning of his journey. A young man about to step into a destiny few could imagine. Solomon was the son of King David, Israel's greatest king. From his earliest years, he grew up in a palace filled with splendor, yet also in a kingdom shadowed by the weight of responsibility. David had ruled with courage, faith, and occasionally harsh justice, leaving Solomon to inherit both the blessings and the burdens of a vast and complex kingdom. But God had a different plan for Solomon, a plan that would mark him not for his wealth, nor for his armies, but for his wisdom. The story begins with a question, one that defines Solomon's life. What is truly valuable? Young Solomon, though crowned as king, recognized that ruling a kingdom is far more than giving orders or amassing riches. When he ascended to the throne, God appeared to him in a dream at night, offering a remarkable choice. Ask what you wish me to give you. Imagine that, a divine invitation to choose anything your heart desires. Gold, long life, victory over enemies, all could have been his. Yet, Solomon's heart sought something far deeper. Rather than asking for wealth or glory, Solomon asked for wisdom, the ability to discern right from wrong, to lead his people justly, and to understand the mysteries of life. His prayer was simple, yet profound. Give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. God was pleased. This request was not for selfish gain, but for the good of others, for the welfare of a nation. In that moment, Solomon's path was set apart. God answered his prayer in a way that astonished the world. Because you have asked for this, and not for long life or riches, I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you before or after you. I will also give you what you have not asked for, both wealth and honor. And so, Solomon's reign began not only with divine wisdom, but with blessings that would make him famous throughout the earth. One of the first signs of his wisdom came shortly after he became king. Two women came to Solomon with a troubling dispute, both claiming to be the mother of a single baby. They lived in the same house, and both insisted the child was theirs. Solomon listened quietly, observing carefully. Then he proposed a shocking solution. Cut the living child in two and give half to each woman. The court gasped, unable to fathom such a suggestion. But Solomon was not cruel. He was testing their hearts. The true mother immediately pleaded, "Please, my lord, give her the living child. Don't kill him." Solomon saw the truth. His judgment revealed the genuine mother, and justice was served. Word of this judgment spread like wildfire, and people from all nations came to witness Solomon's wisdom firsthand. But wisdom was only the beginning. Solomon's mind was a treasure trove of insight. He understood the natural world, human hearts, and the complexities of justice. Leaders and envoys from distant lands traveled to Jerusalem to seek his counsel. Stories say that the Queen of Sheba journeyed across deserts to test him with riddles, and when she met Solomon, she marveled at his understanding and the prosperity of his kingdom. She said, "The report I heard in my own country about your wisdom and wealth is true. I did not believe it until I saw with my own eyes." Yet, Solomon's wisdom was not just for solving disputes or impressing visitors. It was a gift that touched every corner of life. He used it to organize the kingdom, establish laws, and ensure that the people were cared for. His judgments were fair, his words measured, and his policies ensured peace and stability. For the first time in generations, the nation flourished under a ruler whose mind was as sharp as a sword and as gentle as a summer breeze. As the years passed, Solomon's fame grew, but so did his understanding that wisdom alone was not enough. He learned that life is fragile, that even the richest man cannot escape sorrow, and that every human heart carries a struggle. In his reflections, Solomon began to explore deeper truths, the meaning of life, the pursuit of happiness, and the balance between wealth, power, and integrity. These contemplations would later fill the writings known as the Book of Wisdom, a treasure of insight not just for kings, but for all people seeking to live well. Despite his youth, Solomon displayed a remarkable maturity. He recognized the responsibility of leadership, that wisdom must guide action, that justice must temper power, and that every decision carries consequences. He listened more than he spoke, observed more than he judged hastily, and sought God's guidance in every matter. His example set a standard for leadership that echoes even today, a reminder that true power is rooted in understanding, patience, and discernment. Solomon's story also reminds us of the importance of humility. Though gifted with unmatched wisdom, he began his reign as a humble servant of God, acknowledging that all understanding ultimately comes from the Creator. He prayed daily, offered sacrifices, and sought divine guidance for both small and great matters. His life teaches that wisdom is not arrogance. It is a gift to be nurtured, shared, and applied for the good of others. One of the most fascinating aspects of Solomon's early reign was his curiosity. He asked questions about the natural world, about the behavior of animals, and about the cycles of life. He pondered the stars, the plants, and the mysteries of human emotion. His inquiries were not merely academic. They were a reflection of a mind eager to understand God's creation and to use that knowledge wisely. This insatiable curiosity became a hallmark of his reign and would later inspire the writings that form the Book of Wisdom. And yet, as we reflect on Solomon's rise, it is clear that his story is not merely about intellect or fame. It is a story about the human heart, about choices, and about the way divine gifts can shape a life. Solomon's wisdom was not only for resolving disputes or amassing glory. It was a tool to lead with justice, to care for the vulnerable, and to honor God in every decision. In this, he stands as a timeless example of how wisdom, when combined with humility and devotion, transforms both individuals and nations. As we close the first chapter of Solomon's journey, we see a young king standing at the threshold of greatness, blessed with a gift beyond measure, and ready to shape a kingdom that would be remembered forever. The foundations of his wisdom were laid not in wealth or power, but in the choice to seek understanding above all else. This is where our story begins, a tale of insight, of divine guidance, and of a life devoted to discerning the hidden truths of the world. As the sun rose over Jerusalem, Solomon's court was already alive with activity. Courtiers whispered, messengers scurried, and the people of the kingdom awaited the king's guidance. It was a city humming with life, yet under the surface, tensions always simmered, disputes over land, family disagreements, and political rivalries. Solomon, now a young king of remarkable discernment, faced challenges that could overwhelm the unprepared. But his gift of wisdom illuminated every decision, and soon, stories of his insight spread far beyond the walls of the city. One of the first lessons of his reign was learning that true wisdom is not only about knowing the right answer, but also about understanding the hearts of people. Solomon's judgments were legendary. People traveled from distant lands to witness the fairness of a king who could see the truth hidden beneath words and appearances. He listened patiently, observed closely, and weighed every factor before passing judgment. His decisions were never hurried. They were measured, thoughtful, and infused with a sense of justice that earned him the respect of all who came before him. The case of the 2 women and the baby, which had brought him initial fame, was only the beginning. Soon, more complex disputes reached the king's court. Farmers argued over disputed land, merchants debated over contracts, and families sought resolution for inheritance issues. Solomon approached each case with an uncanny ability to perceive not just facts, but the intentions and emotions behind them. One story tells of a merchant and a craftsman who both claimed ownership of a precious jewel. Solomon, without hesitation, asked them to recount the sequence of events in minute detail, noting not only what they said but how they said it, the hesitation, the confidence, the subtleties of tone. In the end, the true owner was revealed, and fairness prevailed. But wisdom, as Solomon soon discovered, was more than resolving disputes. It was about governance, diplomacy, and ensuring the well-being of the kingdom. Solomon organized his council, selecting ministers and advisors not based solely on loyalty, but on ability and integrity. He established clear laws, ensuring that every citizen knew their rights and responsibilities. Under his guidance, Jerusalem became a city of order, where justice was expected and corruption could not easily thrive. Solomon's wisdom also extended to matters of diplomacy. Neighboring kingdoms observed Israel with a mixture of admiration and envy. Leaders recognized that Solomon's mind was as sharp as his resources were vast. Instead of relying only on military might, Solomon used insight, negotiation, and alliances to secure his nation's peace. He welcomed foreign dignitaries, listened to their concerns, and often found solutions that benefited both sides. His approach was revolutionary in a world accustomed to resolving conflicts through war. Jerusalem flourished not just because of its wealth, but because of its reputation as a city of wisdom and fairness. Perhaps no story better illustrates Solomon's skill than the visit of the Queen of Sheba. She traveled a great distance, bringing gifts and challenging questions, seeking to test the king's wisdom. She observed the court, the temple, and the prosperity of the land, and she left marveling at the depth of Solomon's insight. Yet her visit was not simply about curiosity. It was a recognition that wisdom, more than armies or treasures, is the true measure of a king. Solomon answered her questions with clarity, foresight, and humility, leaving her impressed and inspired. This encounter marked the beginning of a period in which Jerusalem became a beacon for those seeking knowledge, justice, and understanding. Solomon's practical wisdom was also evident in the daily life of the kingdom. He devised systems for trade, taxation, and resource management that allowed the nation to thrive. Farmers knew when to plant and harvest, merchants knew when to trade and negotiate, and artisans received fair compensation for their work. Every decision was guided by a mind that sought balance, ensuring prosperity without exploitation, growth without corruption, and stability without oppression. Even in matters of family, Solomon applied insight. He understood that harmony within the palace was essential for the kingdom's stability. He fostered relationships with his siblings, maintained respectful connections with his father's former advisors, and navigated the complex dynamics of court life with patience and tact. His wisdom allowed him to avoid unnecessary conflict, focus on the good of the people, and act decisively when action was required. An essential aspect of Solomon's leadership was his recognition that knowledge must be shared. He encouraged learning, dialogue, and discussion among his advisors and citizens. He hosted debates on moral dilemmas, ethical questions, and practical challenges, ensuring that his court became a place where minds could sharpen one another. Solomon understood that wisdom is not stagnant. It grows when nurtured, tested, and applied. This openness to learning and collaboration strengthened the kingdom, fostering loyalty, trust, and admiration. One of the most remarkable examples of his insight involved a diplomatic dilemma between two neighboring nations. Each claimed ownership of a fertile valley, and tensions threatened to escalate into war. Solomon invited leaders from both sides, listened to their arguments, and then proposed a solution that neither side had anticipated. He suggested joint management of the land, with shared responsibilities and benefits, ensuring both parties could prosper. The solution required compromise, trust, and foresight, but it prevented bloodshed and secured long-term peace. Stories like this spread quickly, cementing Solomon's reputation as a ruler whose wisdom was unmatched. Yet, Solomon's wisdom was not only applied to worldly matters. He was deeply aware of human nature, the hopes, fears, and desires that motivate every soul. He counseled his people on morality, justice, and spiritual insight, teaching that a prosperous life is built not just on material wealth, but on integrity, compassion, and understanding. His judgments reflected not only what was fair, but what was good for the heart, fostering a society where ethics and empathy were as valued as wealth and power. Solomon also recognized the limitations of human knowledge. Even with his extraordinary gift, he sought divine guidance regularly. He prayed, meditated, and reflected, understanding that wisdom is not a possession, but a relationship with God, with people, and with life itself. In doing so, he remained humble, aware that the greatest minds still rely on insight beyond their own. This balance between confidence and humility became a hallmark of his reign, ensuring that his decisions were both bold and measured. Through his actions, Solomon's wisdom transformed the kingdom. Cities were governed fairly, trade flourished, disputes were resolved peacefully, and neighboring nations respected his leadership. The kingdom's prosperity was not only material, it was cultural, moral, and spiritual. Artists, scholars, and thinkers found support in Jerusalem, making it a center of learning and creativity. People came to the city seeking guidance, inspired by the king who ruled with understanding, patience, and compassion. Solomon's story in this phase of his reign teaches a profound lesson. Wisdom is not an abstract concept. It is a tool for action, a compass for decision-making, and a force for harmony. It requires observation, reflection, and the courage to act rightly even when the easy path tempts. It is patience in judgment, foresight in planning, and empathy in leadership. Solomon's life shows that true wisdom transforms both the individual and the world around them. As we conclude this chapter of Solomon's story, we see a kingdom flourishing not merely because of wealth or power, but because of the steady hand of a king who understood the hearts of his people, the intricacies of diplomacy, and the moral weight of leadership. The lessons of his judgments, his diplomacy, and his insight remind us that wisdom is active, relational, and profoundly human. As Jerusalem's streets hummed with life and the courts buzzed with deliberations, Solomon's kingdom began to shine in ways the world had never seen before. Wisdom had brought him understanding, and understanding paved the way for prosperity. Under his guidance, the nation was not just peaceful, it was thriving, a beacon of wealth, innovation, and culture. Solomon's mind was ever restless, seeking ways to turn insight into tangible good for his people. And so began an era of remarkable splendor. One of Solomon's most significant achievements was the construction of the temple in Jerusalem, a magnificent structure destined to become the spiritual heart of the nation. The project was ambitious beyond measure. Every stone, every beam, every detail reflected careful planning, incredible craftsmanship, and, above all, divine inspiration. Solomon knew that a building could be more than stone and timber. It could be a symbol of faith, unity, and wisdom. He oversaw every stage personally, ensuring that the temple would stand as a testament to God's presence and the harmony of the kingdom. The temple's grandeur amazed both his people and visitors from distant lands. Its golden doors, intricate carvings, and sacred inner sanctum were unparalleled. Priests and worshippers marveled at its beauty, feeling in every detail the devotion that had guided its construction. Solomon understood that wealth without purpose is hollow. The temple was more than a display of riches. It was a space where hearts could turn to God, where the community could gather in faith, and where wisdom and devotion met in perfect balance. But Solomon's wealth extended beyond sacred spaces. He built a personal palace of unmatched elegance, with gardens, courtyards, and halls that reflected both his taste and his foresight. The palace was designed not only for comfort, but also for administration, diplomacy, and the arts. Every corridor echoed with strategy and culture. Every chamber reflected order and beauty. Visitors who entered were struck by the harmony between luxury and functionality, a tangible expression of the king's discerning mind. Trade was another cornerstone of Solomon's splendor. The king established vast trade networks reaching across deserts, seas, and mountains. Exotic goods, spices, gold, precious stones, and rare animals flowed into Jerusalem, enriching the economy and supporting artisans, merchants, and laborers. Solomon's approach was strategic. He balanced imports and exports, maintained alliances, and ensured fair practices. Wealth was not hoarded for show. It circulated, creating prosperity for the entire kingdom. The king's insight also extended to taxation and administration. He implemented systems that were clear, fair, and efficient. Farmers paid what was reasonable. merchants contributed proportionally, and public works were funded without burdening the common people excessively. Solomon recognized that a kingdom thrives not just on riches, but on trust. Trust between rulers and citizens, trust in systems of fairness, and trust in the vision of leadership. His administration became a model of efficiency and wisdom. Solomon's interactions with other nations further enhanced his wealth and influence. Alliances were forged through marriages, trade agreements, and diplomacy. Gold and treasures were exchanged not just for material gain, but as symbols of mutual respect and cooperation. Solomon's understanding of human nature allowed him to anticipate challenges, resolve disputes peacefully, and secure long-term prosperity. Foreign leaders respected him not only for his riches, but for the fairness and foresight that guided every decision. Even in matters of culture, Solomon's reign was unmatched. He encouraged arts, music, and literature, recognizing that a wealthy kingdom thrives not just materially, but spiritually and intellectually. Musicians filled the courts with melodies, poets chronicled the beauty of life, and scholars debated ideas that would shape generations. Solomon believed that wealth was best utilized when it elevated the human spirit, inspiring creativity, devotion, and learning. Yet, Solomon understood that splendor, without wisdom, is fleeting. His approach to wealth was deliberate, always guided by insight and morality. He avoided excess for its own sake, carefully considering the impact of each endeavor on the people and the kingdom's future. This perspective distinguished him from other rulers whose riches often led to arrogance and unrest. Solomon's wealth became a tool, a means to promote stability, culture, and faith. Among his most remarkable achievements was the organization of resources for public works. Roads, aqueducts, and fortifications strengthened the infrastructure, connecting cities and villages, facilitating trade, and ensuring safety. Labor was coordinated efficiently, with artisans, builders, and workers all contributing to projects that benefited the kingdom. Solomon's wisdom shone in logistics, planning, and execution, turning grand visions into reality while honoring the value of every person's labor. Solomon's financial strategies were also a lesson in foresight. He invested in industries, encouraged innovation, and established reserves for years of scarcity. Markets were vibrant, artisans and merchants flourished, and families experienced stability. Solomon's understanding of human behavior, supply and demand, and the long-term needs of the kingdom allowed him to create a system that was resilient, prosperous, and fair. The story of Solomon's wealth and splendor is incomplete without mention of his attention to knowledge and curiosity. He sought not only material riches, but also understanding of the world. He studied the patterns of trade, the habits of animals, the growth of crops, and the cycles of nature. This knowledge informed every decision, from agriculture to commerce to diplomacy, ensuring that prosperity was sustainable and rooted in wisdom. It was during this period that stories of his riches and achievements began to spread across continents. Travelers and traders spoke of Jerusalem's grandeur, of the temple's magnificence, and of the king who combined wisdom with wealth. Solomon's fame was no longer confined to Israel. It became legendary, a symbol of a kingdom where insight, strategy, and devotion converged. People marveled not only at the material achievements, but at the way wisdom guided every action, turning potential chaos into harmony. Yet, Solomon's wealth was never the ultimate goal. Every palace, every temple, every market, and every caravan reflected a deeper purpose: to honor God, to elevate the people, and to build a legacy of wisdom that would endure. Even as visitors admired the riches, they sensed the guiding hand of insight behind them, a reminder that true greatness lies not in possessions, but in how they are used. Solomon also recognized the fleeting nature of material wealth. He observed the cycles of life, the rise and fall of kingdoms, and the fragility of human ambition. This understanding deepened his appreciation for wisdom, humility, and divine guidance. He taught that while wealth can build empires, it is insight, fairness, and moral courage that ensure they endure. The story of Solomon's wealth and splendor offers timeless lessons. Prosperity is most meaningful when guided by wisdom, applied with fairness, and shared with others. True greatness lies in combining insight with action, strategy with morality, and resources with purpose. Solomon's achievements remind us that wealth, when rooted in understanding and devotion, becomes a force for good, not mere indulgence. As we conclude this chapter of Solomon's story, we see a kingdom shining with wealth, culture, and faith. But the story does not end with material splendor. Solomon's mind, restless and seeking deeper truths, turned inward as well as outward. He began to explore the mysteries of life, the nature of the soul, and the guidance of God. These reflections would soon form the writings that fill the Book of Wisdom, revealing lessons far greater than gold or silver. As the golden sun bathed Jerusalem in warm light, Solomon's thoughts often turned inward. While the city thrived with commerce, culture, and architecture, his heart sought understanding of a deeper kind. Wealth and splendor, as magnificent as they were, could not answer the questions that stirred in his soul. What is the meaning of life? How should humans live in harmony with one another and with God? What is the path to true fulfillment? It was in these reflections that Solomon's spiritual insight began to take shape. Solomon's wisdom was not only practical, it was contemplative. He observed the world around him, the changing seasons, the flow of rivers, the behavior of animals, and the complexities of human relationships. Every observation became a lesson, a metaphor, a piece of divine truth waiting to be expressed. His writings, which would later fill the Book of Wisdom, Proverbs, and Ecclesiastes, were the product of a mind and heart seeking clarity, purpose, and understanding beyond the material world. One of the hallmarks of Solomon's spiritual insight was his recognition of human nature. He saw the desires, fears, and ambitions that drive people, and he sought to guide them toward virtue. In his Proverbs, he wrote about honesty, patience, humility, and diligence. He reflected on the fleeting nature of wealth, the importance of righteousness, and the need to honor God above all else. His words were simple yet profound, practical yet deeply philosophical, offering guidance that transcended time and place. Solomon's writings were not confined to moral advice. He also explored the mysteries of life itself. He pondered the cycles of birth and death, the joys and sorrows that every person experiences, and the eternal truths that lie beneath the surface of existence. In his reflections, he acknowledged the limitations of human understanding while also emphasizing the power of seeking wisdom through devotion and contemplation. He recognized that knowledge is valuable, but understanding and discernment are even greater gifts. The Book of Proverbs, perhaps his most famous work, exemplifies this wisdom. Each proverb is a gem of insight, a distilled truth that guides behavior and decision-making. A soft answer turns away wrath, he wrote, highlighting the power of patience over aggression. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, he reminded, emphasizing that spiritual reverence is the foundation of all understanding. These writings were not abstract ideas. They were practical tools for living a life that honors God, nurtures relationships, and cultivates personal integrity. Solomon's spiritual insight extended to leadership as well. He understood that governing a kingdom is not merely about enforcing laws or maintaining order. It is about guiding hearts and minds toward justice, compassion, and virtue. His judgments were informed not only by observation, but by moral principle, ensuring that each decision served the greater good. In this way, wisdom and spirituality were inseparable, each enhancing the other in the service of the kingdom and its people. Another remarkable aspect of Solomon's reflections was his acknowledgement of life's paradoxes. He recognized that joy and sorrow, wealth and poverty, success and failure, all coexist in the human experience. In Ecclesiastes, he explored these tensions with honesty and depth, observing that life is often unpredictable and fleeting. Yet he did not despair. Instead, he encouraged mindfulness, gratitude, and purposeful living, guiding people to find balance and meaning even amidst uncertainty. Solomon's spiritual writings also address the mysteries of time and eternity. He contemplated the brevity of human life, the permanence of divine wisdom, and the eternal nature of the soul. He encouraged reflection, meditation, and devotion, teaching that while humans may never fully grasp the scope of existence, seeking understanding brings peace, clarity, and moral direction. His insight was both comforting and challenging, inviting readers to consider their place in the world and their relationship with God. One of the most profound lessons in Solomon's writings is the value of discernment. He emphasized the importance of seeing beyond appearances, of understanding intentions, and of making decisions that honor both God and humanity. This insight permeated every aspect of his life, from governance to personal conduct, from spiritual contemplation to social interaction. Solomon's example demonstrates that wisdom is most powerful when it guides actions, shapes character, and aligns with a higher moral order. Solomon also recognized the importance of teaching and mentorship. He shared his wisdom with young leaders, advisors, and citizens, ensuring that knowledge was not hoarded but passed on. He encouraged questioning, dialogue, and exploration, fostering a culture in which insight could grow, deepen, and spread. This emphasis on education and moral development helped secure the long-term stability and prosperity of his kingdom. His reflections were deeply human. Solomon did not claim perfection. He acknowledged his own limitations, doubts, and struggles. Yet he sought growth, understanding, and alignment with divine principles. In this humility, he found strength, and in this pursuit, he left a legacy that would inspire generations. His writings encourage readers to embrace reflection, to seek knowledge and wisdom, and to act with integrity in every sphere of life. Solomon's spiritual insight also guided his approach to relationships. He understood the complexities of family, friendship, and leadership, and he sought to foster harmony through fairness, understanding, and empathy. His writings explore loyalty, trust, and compassion, offering timeless guidance on cultivating meaningful connections and navigating the challenges of human interaction. Throughout his reign, Solomon remained deeply devoted to God. He offered prayers, performed rituals, and maintained a personal discipline of reflection and meditation. This devotion was not ceremonial alone. It was integrated into his leadership, decision-making, and personal conduct. His example shows that spirituality is most effective when it informs action, shapes character, and guides moral choices. As we reflect on this phase of Solomon's life, we see a king whose wealth and splendor were matched by profound insight into the human condition. His writings, proverbs, and reflections offer guidance on ethics, morality, and the pursuit of wisdom. They remind us that leadership, prosperity, and success are most meaningful when grounded in understanding, humility, and devotion. Even the wisest among men are not immune to the trials of the human heart, and Solomon, blessed with unmatched wisdom, wealth, and insight, was no exception. As his reign progressed, the king faced challenges that tested not only his intellect, but his character, patience, and devotion. These struggles would teach him, and us, that wisdom, though divine, must be tempered by vigilance, humility, and self-awareness. Solomon's first and perhaps greatest challenge was the tension between desire and duty. His position as king brought countless temptations, the allure of wealth, the seduction of luxury, and the complex entanglements of power. Though he had asked God for wisdom above all else, the pleasures of palace life, the attention of admirers, and the pressures of leadership created openings for human weakness. Solomon's story reminds us that even divine gifts are vulnerable when tested by unchecked desires. One of the most documented aspects of Solomon's life is his marriages and alliances. In addition to his political wisdom, Solomon formed connections through matrimony with many foreign princesses. While these unions secured peace and strengthened trade alliances, they also introduced spiritual challenges. His heart was drawn, at times, away from the singular devotion he owed to God. Temples and altars were built to honor the gods of his wives, a compromise that brought tension to his otherwise devout life. This period of Solomon's reign illustrates a powerful truth. Even wisdom must contend with human attachment and influence, and moral vigilance is a lifelong pursuit. Pride, too, became a subtle challenge. Solomon's fame spread far and wide, drawing admiration, respect, and sometimes envy. Leaders from across the known world sought his counsel, and his accomplishments were unparalleled. Yet human nature is susceptible to the subtle seduction of glory. The balance between humility and acknowledgement of one's gifts is delicate. Solomon's story reminds us that recognition can uplift the spirit or, if unchecked, inflate the ego and cloud judgment. Beyond personal challenges, Solomon also faced political tensions within his kingdom. Maintaining unity among diverse tribes and territories required not only wisdom, but constant attention, diplomacy, and strategic insight. His decisions, no matter how fair, could ignite resentment or jealousy. Leaders of factions tested his patience, citizens questioned policies, and advisors occasionally presented conflicting counsel. Navigating these complexities required a rare combination of discernment, courage, and ethical consistency, a challenge that even a man as wise as Solomon could not take lightly. Another trial lay in the unpredictability of human relationships. Even those closest to the king sometimes acted out of fear, ambition, or misunderstanding. Solomon learned that insight into human motives was as critical as knowledge of law or scripture. Missteps, if unaddressed, could ripple through the kingdom, creating tension, misunderstanding, or unrest. He discovered that wisdom alone does not guarantee harmony. It must be applied with empathy, patience, and consistent moral grounding. Solomon also faced the tension between temporal success and eternal responsibility. His wealth, splendor, and achievements were remarkable, yet he understood the fragility of life. Empires rise and fall, fortunes shift, and human memory fades. These reflections deepened his appreciation for humility, reminding him that true legacy rests not in possessions or accolades, but in the ethical and spiritual guidance one leaves behind. Even a king of unmatched wisdom must constantly remind himself of the fleeting nature of worldly accomplishments. The scriptures reveal that these challenges left Solomon introspective. His writings in Ecclesiastes, for example, reveal a man grappling with the paradoxes of existence, joy and sorrow, success and failure, wisdom and folly. He acknowledged that even a life filled with knowledge, wealth, and accomplishment can feel empty without purpose and devotion. This honesty about human limitation and vulnerability is perhaps one of the most relatable aspects of his story. It shows that wisdom does not make one invincible, but rather more aware of life's complexities. Solomon's human weaknesses also extended to spiritual matters. Despite his wisdom and devotion, moments of misalignment with God occurred. The temples built for foreign gods, the compromises in religious practice, and the distractions of worldly allure illustrate that even those closest to divine guidance face the temptation to stray. Yet, these struggles were not failures. They were lessons, reminders that wisdom must coexist with humility, vigilance, and continual reflection. One of the profound lessons from this period of Solomon's life is that knowledge alone does not shield one from error. Insight must be paired with discipline, conscience, and accountability. Solomon's experience shows that wisdom is not a static achievement, but an ongoing process, one that requires self-awareness, restraint, and constant effort to align choices with higher principles. Even kings must confront their own limitations and seek correction when necessary. Despite these human weaknesses, Solomon's reign remained largely prosperous. The kingdom continued to thrive because he applied his lessons from challenge with discernment. He learned to navigate political complexities with diplomacy, to temper personal desires with moral reflection, and to guide his people with fairness, even amidst his own internal struggles. His life exemplifies a dynamic balance between gift and responsibility, insight and fallibility, achievement and self-awareness. Solomon's story also serves as a guide for personal reflection. We see in him the consequences of overindulgence, distraction, and spiritual compromise. But we also see the power of reflection, correction, and continued devotion. Challenges are not a sign of failure. They are opportunities to grow, to refine understanding, and to strengthen the alignment between wisdom and action. Every human, no matter how gifted, must confront the tension between desire and discipline, between ego and humility, between knowledge and moral accountability. Even in facing weakness, Solomon continued to produce wisdom. His proverbs, reflections, and teachings became infused with the lessons of experience, advice tempered by understanding of human frailty. He wrote about the importance of patience, the dangers of pride, the value of humility, and the necessity of relying on God for guidance. These writings became a testament to the interplay between divine insight and human struggle, offering a roadmap for navigating life's complexities with integrity. As we look at this chapter of Solomon's life, we see that challenges and weaknesses are not signs of failure. They are integral to wisdom. True insight comes not from perfection, but from the ability to recognize limitations, confront temptation, and continue striving toward understanding. Solomon's experience reminds us that every gift carries responsibility, every blessing requires discipline, and every life is a journey of learning, reflection, and growth. Even as Solomon ruled a prosperous kingdom, adorned with wealth, wisdom, and fame, there remained a part of his mind and spirit that sought deeper truths, mysteries that could not be found in gold, law, or diplomacy. These were the secret revelations, the hidden insights that illuminated the mysteries of life, eternity, and the divine plan. This was the inner world of Solomon, where wisdom became not just a tool for governance, but a lens to understand the profound truths of existence. From a young age, Solomon had been endowed with extraordinary insight. But as he matured, he realized that even wisdom, as remarkable as it was, could only scratch the surface of the universe's mysteries. He began to reflect on the eternal questions. What is the meaning of life? Why does suffering exist? How should one live a life that is pleasing to God? These contemplations went beyond practical judgment, beyond material prosperity. They were the secret revelations that would later inspire the Book of Wisdom. One of the central themes of Solomon's secret insights was the understanding of time and mortality. He observed the cycles of nature, the rising and setting of the sun, the changing seasons, the growth and decay of all living things, and he recognized a profound truth. Life is fleeting, and human endeavors are temporary. Yet within this impermanence lies a call to reflection, action, and alignment with divine purpose. Solomon understood that wisdom must not only guide daily life, but prepare the soul for eternity. These reflections deepened Solomon's spiritual awareness. He saw that knowledge without humility can be dangerous, and power without moral grounding can corrupt. In his secret writings, he emphasized discernment, patience, and devotion, teaching that the truest understanding comes not from what the world praises, but from what aligns with God's eternal truth. Wisdom, in this sense, was a bridge between human limitation and divine insight, a key to understanding both the seen and the unseen. Solomon's mystical reflections also explored human nature. He observed desires, fears, ambitions, and the subtle inclinations of the heart. In his private meditations, he discerned patterns of behavior and the moral consequences of action. He recorded these insights as guidance for kings, leaders, and ordinary people alike, revealing that the heart, when guided by wisdom and divine understanding, becomes the most powerful instrument for life well lived. One striking aspect of these revelations was Solomon's awareness of the interconnectedness of all creation. He saw that every action, no matter how small, has consequences that ripple outward. The health of the land, the stability of society, and the well-being of individuals are intertwined. His writings reflect an ecological, ethical, and spiritual awareness that was far ahead of his time, emphasizing balance, stewardship, and the importance of acting with foresight and moral responsibility. Solomon also delved into the nature of human understanding itself. He acknowledged its limits and cautioned against pride in knowledge. Even the wisest cannot fully grasp the depth of God's creation, he wrote, and the pursuit of truth requires humility, reflection, and devotion. This awareness of human limitation is a key element of his secret revelations, reminding us that wisdom is a lifelong journey rather than a final destination. In addition, Solomon explored the nature of happiness and fulfillment. Through observation, meditation, and prayer, he concluded that true contentment arises not from wealth, power, or pleasure alone, but from alignment with divine principles, ethical living, and meaningful relationships. These insights, recorded in the Book of Wisdom, provide guidance that transcends centuries, offering practical and spiritual lessons for anyone seeking a life of purpose and peace. Solomon's secret revelations were also philosophical in nature. He examined the concepts of justice, morality, and virtue, often posing questions that challenge even the most thoughtful minds. How should one act when the path is unclear? What does it mean to live rightly in a world filled with uncertainty? How can a leader balance personal desire with responsibility to others? These questions reflect the depth of Solomon's contemplation and the enduring relevance of his wisdom. Mystical insights also formed a crucial part of Solomon's legacy. He explored the invisible threads that connect humans to God, the spiritual forces that influence life, and the moral laws embedded in creation. While much of this knowledge was not shared openly, it shaped his judgments, policies, and personal conduct, demonstrating that true wisdom integrates seen and unseen realms, action and reflection, human understanding, and divine guidance. Solomon's understanding of divine providence also deepened through these secret revelations. He recognized that while humans plan and act, God ultimately oversees the unfolding of life's events. Success, failure, joy, and sorrow are all part of a larger divine tapestry, and insight comes from seeing life not only through human eyes, but through a lens attuned to eternity. This awareness fostered humility, patience, and reverence in Solomon's leadership and personal life. Even in the realm of knowledge and science, Solomon's insights were remarkable. He studied the natural world, the stars, plants, animals, and weather patterns, with the intent to understand the laws underlying creation. He realized that learning about the material world is not an end in itself, but a pathway to understanding the Creator and the moral order of the universe. Knowledge and spirituality were inseparable in his reflections. Solomon also recorded guidance for kings and leaders, emphasizing the integration of wisdom, justice, and ethical responsibility. He advised rulers to act with fairness, to respect the dignity of subjects, and to consider the long-term consequences of decisions. This guidance reflects a profound understanding of leadership that balances practical governance with moral and spiritual insight, a hallmark of his secret revelations. Another key theme of Solomon's secret wisdom was the pursuit of moderation. He warned against excess in all forms: wealth, indulgence, ambition, or power, recognizing that imbalance leads to moral, social, and spiritual decay. This principle is woven throughout his writings, reminding us that even the greatest gifts must be handled with restraint and discernment. Through these reflections, Solomon produced some of the most profound spiritual and philosophical literature in history. His secret revelations bridge the practical and the mystical, the temporal and the eternal. They provide insight into governance, morality, human nature, and the divine plan, creating a roadmap for living wisely, ethically, and purposefully. As we reflect on this phase of Solomon's life, we see a king who, despite unparalleled wealth and fame, recognized that true understanding lies beyond the visible world. His secret revelations offer timeless lessons. Life is fleeting. Wisdom requires humility. Human actions carry consequences, and alignment with divine principles brings meaning and fulfillment. Solomon's insights continue to inspire, guiding seekers of knowledge, leaders, and ordinary people alike. Even as the years passed and the golden halls of Jerusalem continued to shine, Solomon's mind and writings had already begun to leave a mark that would endure far beyond his reign. His legacy was not only in the splendor of his kingdom or the wealth he amassed, but in the wisdom, insights, and moral guidance he provided, a legacy that would influence generations of leaders, scholars, and ordinary people alike. Solomon's greatest gift to the world was perhaps the combination of practical wisdom and spiritual insight. While other rulers relied solely on armies, riches, or political power, Solomon wielded understanding as his true instrument of influence. He demonstrated that a kingdom prospers not only through material wealth, but through justice, morality, and ethical governance. This principle became a model for leaders who followed, setting a standard that transcended borders and centuries. The Book of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Book of Wisdom became the cornerstone of this legacy. Each text contains distilled lessons drawn from observation, reflection, and divine inspiration. They address everyday life, relationships, morality, decision-making, and personal conduct, as well as profound philosophical questions about existence, happiness, and human purpose. Solomon's writings offer guidance for living with integrity, patience, and discernment, and their influence has been felt in countless cultures and religious traditions. Solomon's approach to leadership became a template for generations. He showed that true authority relies on the respect and trust of those governed. Leaders who act with fairness, insight, and moral courage inspire loyalty and stability. Solomon's judgments, both public and private, demonstrate the importance of understanding human nature, anticipating challenges, and applying ethical principles in every decision. His reign is often cited as the gold standard for wise and just governance. Education and the pursuit of knowledge were also central to his legacy. Solomon encouraged learning, debate, and reflection within his court, creating an environment where insight could flourish. Scholars, artisans, and diplomats were all nurtured under his guidance, and this culture of intellectual curiosity strengthened not only the kingdom but the moral and spiritual life of the people. By fostering a society that valued understanding as much as wealth, Solomon ensured that wisdom would persist beyond his lifetime. Another critical aspect of his enduring legacy was the integration of morality and spirituality into everyday life. Solomon emphasized that wisdom is incomplete without reverence for God and ethical conduct toward others. He demonstrated that success and prosperity are meaningful only when guided by integrity, compassion, and devotion. This principle, woven through his judgments, writings, and policies, became a lasting lesson for leaders and citizens alike. Solomon's influence also reached beyond Israel. His fame as a wise and just ruler spread to distant lands, inspiring kings, scholars, and travelers to seek counsel and emulate his principles. The stories of his judgments, the splendor of his court, and the depth of his writings were shared across cultures, becoming a symbol of what wisdom, when applied with virtue, can achieve. In this way, Solomon's legacy transcended geography, time, and even language, touching the lives of people who had never set foot in Jerusalem. The spiritual dimension of his legacy is equally profound. Solomon's reflections on human nature, mortality, and divine providence continue to resonate. He explored the tensions between joy and sorrow, success and failure, human desire and moral responsibility. These explorations remind us that wisdom is not a static possession, but a dynamic practice, a continual effort to understand life, act rightly, and align with higher principles. Generations have drawn guidance from these reflections, finding in them counsel for both leadership and personal conduct. Solomon's construction of the temple and other public works further cemented his legacy. These projects were more than architectural feats. They were symbols of vision, organization, and devotion. The temple became the spiritual heart of the nation, a place where generations would gather to worship, reflect, and seek divine guidance. Even centuries later, the memory of Solomon's architectural and civic accomplishments served as a testament to the enduring power of combining wisdom with action. Moreover, Solomon's legacy includes lessons about human frailty and humility. His later years, marked by challenges and moments of spiritual struggle, provide insight into the complexities of life, even for the wisest among us. These experiences remind us that wisdom is not immunity from error, but the capacity to learn, reflect, and correct one's course. Solomon's acknowledgement of human weakness adds a deeply human dimension to his legacy, making his insights relatable and timeless. The continuity of Solomon's influence is also evident in the generations that followed. Kings and leaders studied his proverbs and judgments, seeking to emulate his balance of justice, insight, and morality. Scholars and spiritual seekers found in his writings guidance for contemplation, ethical living, and the pursuit of understanding. His teachings became embedded in religious, cultural, and philosophical traditions, ensuring that his wisdom would outlive the transient nature of political power and material wealth. Solomon's life teaches that a true legacy is not measured solely by what is built or accumulated, but by the lasting impact of insight, ethics, and moral courage. His wisdom, applied to governance, personal conduct, and spiritual reflection, created ripples that would shape the moral and intellectual fabric of society. Leaders who follow his example recognize that influence comes from understanding, fairness, and ethical decision-making rather than force or intimidation. Even today, the story of Solomon inspires those who seek guidance in leadership, personal growth, and moral discernment. His example reminds us that wisdom is not static. It is cultivated, applied, and shared. It thrives when combined with humility, reflection, and devotion to a higher purpose. The lessons of his life continue to illuminate the path for those who wish to live with integrity, insight, and foresight. As we conclude this chapter, we see that Solomon's legacy is multifaceted. Wisdom applied in governance, insight infused into daily life, devotion integrated with action, and humility balanced with achievement. His life demonstrates the enduring power of understanding, the importance of moral courage, and the lasting influence of a mind devoted to truth, justice, and spiritual reflection. As Solomon's reign approached its later years, the king had witnessed the full spectrum of life's experiences, triumphs and trials, wealth and scarcity, admiration and challenge. His legacy, already immense, was not only in the grandeur of Jerusalem, the temple, or the prosperity of his kingdom, but in the wisdom he cultivated, applied, and recorded. This final chapter explores the ultimate lessons from Solomon's life, offering timeless guidance for humanity. Solomon understood that life is a delicate balance between action and reflection, desire and restraint, ambition and humility. Through his own experiences, he learned that knowledge alone is insufficient. It must be tempered with understanding, moral insight, and spiritual awareness. True wisdom arises when one sees the broader picture of life, recognizing the transient nature of material success and the enduring value of virtue, compassion, and alignment with divine principles. One of the most profound lessons Solomon imparted is the importance of prioritizing what is eternal over what is fleeting. He saw that riches, power, and fame, while beneficial, are temporary and often unreliable. Joy can be disrupted, wealth can be lost, and human memory fades. By contrast, moral integrity, devotion to God, and the pursuit of wisdom create a legacy that transcends time. Solomon's reflections encourage us to focus on values that endure: honesty, humility, service, and insight. Solomon also emphasized the power of discernment. He taught that the ability to perceive truth, understand motives, and anticipate consequences is more valuable than mere intelligence or experience. A person who acts without discernment may achieve success temporarily, but without ethical guidance, their actions may harm others or undermine long-term stability. Solomon's judgments, recorded in Proverbs and examples throughout his reign, illustrate that discernment is a skill cultivated through observation, reflection, and moral consideration. Another lesson is the inevitability of human limitation. Even Solomon, blessed with divine wisdom, wealth, and fame, faced challenges, temptations, and mistakes. Recognizing one's own vulnerability is not a weakness. It is an essential step toward growth and humility. By acknowledging limitations, seeking guidance, and reflecting on experiences, we develop resilience, wisdom, and ethical clarity. Solomon's life demonstrates that true strength lies in the ability to learn from weakness and adapt accordingly. Solomon also teaches us about the importance of balance. Life is filled with paradoxes, joy and sorrow, success and failure, power and responsibility. The challenge is to navigate these tensions without being overwhelmed or led astray. Solomon's writings, particularly in Ecclesiastes, explore this theme extensively, reminding us to find moderation in all things, material wealth, ambition, pleasure, and even knowledge itself. Balance ensures that success does not breed arrogance, and that challenges do not lead to despair. Reflection and contemplation are central to Solomon's timeless wisdom. He demonstrated that moments of quiet observation, prayer, and meditation are crucial for understanding life's complexities. By reflecting on both the seen and unseen, the temporal and eternal, one gains insight that informs decisions, shapes character, and deepens spiritual awareness. Solomon's dedication to contemplation reminds us that wisdom is cultivated through both thought and action, reflection and experience. Solomon's approach to leadership provides enduring guidance for anyone in a position of responsibility. He emphasized fairness, empathy, and justice, understanding that true influence comes from respect, trust, and ethical conduct. Leaders who apply wisdom with integrity foster loyalty, stability, and prosperity. Solomon's life demonstrates that authority is most effective when it serves others rather than simply asserting power, and when decisions are guided by both insight and moral principle. Relationships, too, were central to his teachings. Solomon understood that human connections are complex, influenced by desire, fear, ambition, and love. He encouraged patience, honesty, and empathy, recognizing that the health of relationships impacts personal and communal well-being. His reflections guide us in cultivating meaningful bonds, resolving conflict with wisdom, and understanding the hearts of those around us. Spiritual alignment is another cornerstone of Solomon's ultimate lessons. True wisdom, he taught, is inseparable from devotion to God. Material success and intellectual achievement are fleeting unless accompanied by reverence, humility, and ethical living. Solomon's reflections underscore that aligning one's actions with divine principles provides both guidance and stability, offering clarity in moments of uncertainty and purpose in moments of decision. Solomon also explored the pursuit of happiness and fulfillment. He concluded that joy is not found solely in external accomplishments, pleasure, or recognition, but in meaningful work, ethical conduct, personal growth, and spiritual connection. Fulfillment arises when one balances ambition with integrity, desire with moderation, and action with reflection. These insights provide a roadmap for living a life of substance, depth, and lasting satisfaction. A profound aspect of Solomon's wisdom is the understanding of legacy. He recognized that our actions, words, and decisions ripple beyond our own lives, influencing generations to come. True greatness lies not in wealth or fame, but in the positive impact we leave through teaching, example, justice, and ethical conduct. Solomon's life demonstrates that building a legacy is a conscious, ongoing effort, guided by insight, integrity, and devotion. Solomon's secret revelations, his writings, and his reflections converge to create a holistic vision of human life, one that integrates intellect, morality, spirituality, and action. He reminds us that wisdom is dynamic, requiring continual learning, reflection, and application. Even the greatest minds must navigate uncertainty, temptation, and challenge, but with discernment, humility, and alignment with higher principles, they can leave an enduring impact. In conclusion, Solomon's story, from his rise as a young king gifted with divine wisdom, to his challenges, splendor, reflections, and secret insights, offers lessons that transcend time and culture. He exemplifies the pursuit of knowledge balanced with moral and spiritual grounding, the responsible use of power and wealth, and the enduring value of ethical, reflective, and compassionate living. His life is a guide, showing that wisdom is not a static gift, but a lifelong journey of understanding, action, and devotion. My friend, remember this: the ultimate treasure is not wealth, fame, or even intellectual achievement. It is wisdom that guides action, shapes character, and aligns us with the principles of justice, compassion, and the divine. Solomon's life illuminates this path, teaching us that true greatness lies in understanding, integrity, and the courage to live wisely. As we close this series, may the lessons of Solomon inspire reflection, growth, and purposeful living. His story reminds us that while life is complex, fleeting, and sometimes challenging, wisdom, when cultivated, applied, and shared, creates a legacy that endures, enriches, and transforms. Let us carry these insights into our own lives, striving to act with discernment, humility, and devotion, leaving a mark of integrity, understanding, and love for generations to come.